Elias Marlowe wiped the sweat from his forehead as he leaned over a pile of broken machines. The asteroid colony was always noisy, full of grinding metal and the hum of engines. Dust hung in the air, catching the dim light of the overhead lamps. Elias loved this quiet work in his little workshop. Machines never complained, never demanded anything. At least, that was what he liked to think. He was fixing a small toy, a little robot that belonged to one of the miners' children. Its gears had jammed, and the paint was chipped. Elias worked carefully, tightening screws and oiling tiny joints. He smiled when it moved again, its little arms waving. The boy who had brought it in would be so happy. A sudden sound made Elias pause. A low whimper, soft but desperate, came from the corner of the workshop. He froze and listened. It was unlike anything he had ever heard. It wasn't a human voice. It wasn't mechanical. It was something small and scared. Elias set down the toy and followed the sound. Behind a stack of crates, he saw a tiny shape curled in a ball. It had scales that shimmered like liquid silver and wings too small to fly. Its eyes were huge and wet, glowing faintly in the dim light. The hatchling shivered and whimpered again. For a moment, Elias just stared. A dragon. A real dragon, and it was alive. He had only seen creatures like this in old stories from Earth. How it had gotten here, no one could tell. Maybe it had escaped from one of the cargo freighters. Maybe it had been abandoned. Either way, it was hurt, weak, and alone. Elias knew he couldn't just leave it. His mind raced. The colony had strict rules. No alien creatures. Anyone who found out could get in serious trouble. And yet, he couldn't walk away. He remembered the little robot he had just fixed, the joy on a child's face. Could he let this small life suffer because of rules? He shook his head. No. Not this time. He slowly approached the hatchling, keeping his hands visible. It's okay, he whispered, voice gentle. I won't hurt you. The dragon tilted its head, eyeing him suspiciously. Its small claws dug into the floor, but it didn't run. Elias smiled slightly. That was a good sign. It understood fear and trust. Elias carefully lifted the creature. It was lighter than he expected, but its body trembled with weakness. He carried it to a small crate he had cleaned out for storage, laying it on some soft rags. Its wings twitched, tiny sparks of light shimmering along the edges. Elias had never seen anything like it. He rummaged through his supplies, pulling out a few scraps of food. The dragon sniffed, then nibbled slowly. Elias watched, fascinated. Its small tail flicked nervously, and its eyes darted around the room. It was alive. It was curious. And it had a spark that no machine could ever have. Night fell outside the workshop, and the colony's lights flickered against the asteroid surface. Elias didn't notice. He was too focused on the dragon. He cleaned its small wounds, speaking softly, telling stories about Earth, about his life on the colony. The hatchling listened, its eyes wide, sometimes blinking slowly, almost as if it understood him. Hours passed, and Elias knew he couldn't keep it hidden forever. Someone might find out. But he also knew he couldn't let anyone take it away. This little creature depended on him. And he had started to depend on it, too. He named it Lumi, after the faint glow of its scales. Lumi snuggled closer, resting its head on his arm. Elias felt a strange warmth, a connection he had never felt before. It wasn't just the joy of fixing something broken. This was bigger. This was life, fragile and brilliant, trusting him completely. Elias didn't sleep that night. He sat by Lumi, watching it breathe, studying its tiny wings and shimmering scales. He wondered where it had come from, how it had survived alone. But most of all, he thought about what it would become. Somehow, deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. By the time the first light of the asteroid sun crept through the workshop windows, Elias had made a decision. He would take care of Lumi. He would protect it. No matter the risk. No matter the rules. Something inside him stirred, a sense of purpose he hadn't felt before. This small, helpless dragon was more than a creature. It was a spark. And sparks, he knew, could grow into flames. Flames that might change everything. Elias spent the next few days quietly observing Lumi. The hatchling grew stronger with each passing hour. Its tiny claws dug into the crate less often, and its wings twitched more confidently. Elias had never seen anything like it. The shimmer of Lumi's scales seemed to change colors depending on the light. Sometimes, in the dim glow of the workshop, they looked almost silver, other times pale blue. It fascinated Elias, but more than that, it made him feel responsible for something greater than himself. He built a small play area in the corner of the workshop. He took spare pieces of metal and wires and fashioned little toys, puzzles, and ramps. Lumi explored every corner, nudging pieces around, flapping its tiny wings, and sometimes letting out soft, almost musical chirps. Elias laughed quietly, feeling a warmth he hadn't felt in years. The hatchling's joy was simple, but it was powerful. At night, when the colony slept, Elias would talk to Lumi. He told stories of his childhood, of Earth, and of the stars he had never reached. Lumi would tilt its head, sometimes blinking slowly, as if understanding. Elias wondered if the hatchling could truly comprehend his words or if it simply responded to tone and attention. Either way, the bond between them grew stronger every day. One morning, a loud alarm shook the colony. Aliens had been detected on the outer perimeter, raiders, according to the security messages. The colony was tense. Everyone was on edge. Elias tightened his hold on Lumi, hiding the hatchling under a cloth. He couldn't risk anyone discovering it. Not now. The next few days were tense. Scouts returned with reports of alien ships moving closer. Elias spent his time fixing machinery, but his thoughts were always with Lumi. He noticed the hatchling had begun to react to danger. Its small body would stiffen, eyes narrowing, ears twitching at sounds humans couldn't even hear. Elias realized that Lumi could sense threats before anyone else. It was almost like the hatchling understood more than it should. One evening, as Elias worked on a broken water pump, Lumi slipped out of its crate. It moved quietly, watching him with wide eyes. Suddenly, the room shook from a distant explosion outside. The hatchling hissed softly and then flared its tiny wings. Sparks of light shot from its scales. Elias froze. Lumi was reacting to the danger, even before he understood it himself. Elias knelt beside Lumi, whispering, "It's okay. I'm here." But he couldn't ignore the realization, the hatchling was smarter than any animal he had ever known. It wasn't just reacting instinctively, it was learning, observing, maybe even thinking. The thought both excited and terrified him. Over the next week, Elias experimented carefully. He created small tasks for Lumi, teaching it to push levers, pull tiny ropes, and manipulate objects. Lumi caught on faster than Elias expected. It would study him, mimic his movements, and even figure out shortcuts. Elias realized he was not just taking care of the hatchling, he was training it, guiding it. One night, while the colony slept, Elias heard a soft knock at the workshop door. He opened it cautiously to find a young miner, Mara, standing there. Her eyes widened when she saw Lumi curling in the corner, tiny sparks of light flickering along its scales. "Elias, what is that?" she whispered. He hesitated, then said quietly, "It's something I found. Hurt and alone. I'm taking care of it." Mara's eyes shone with wonder. "It's a dragon?" she asked, barely able to believe it. "Yes," Elias replied. "But you can't tell anyone." They wouldn't understand." Mara nodded, her curiosity obvious. "It's incredible. I've never seen anything like it." For the first time, Elias realized he wasn't alone in keeping Lumi a secret. Mara agreed to help, feeding the hatchling and watching over it while Elias worked. Together, they began to understand the creature's intelligence, its ability to learn, and its strange, glowing scales. As days passed, Elias noticed something extraordinary. Lumi had begun to imitate speech, simple sounds at first, then more complex noises. Elias tried to teach it human words, and the hatchling would mimic them hesitantly, then with more confidence. It was as if the dragon wanted to communicate, to understand humans the same way humans tried to understand it. Elias felt a sense of pride mixed with awe. He had helped this small creature survive, and now it was growing beyond his imagination. He knew in his heart that Lumi was not just a helpless hatchling anymore. There was something powerful inside it, something that could change the world, if only it survived. Late one night, Elias watched Lumi sleep under the dim lights. Its body glowed faintly, wings tucked close, tiny chest rising and falling with slow, steady breaths. Elias whispered, "You're safe now, Lumi. I promise." He knew that protecting the hatchling would be dangerous. Aliens could come. The colony could discover it. But something inside him stirred, a certainty that this small, fragile life would become extraordinary. And Elias, just a simple engineer on the edge of the galaxy, felt the first spark of a new purpose. He wasn't just fixing broken machines anymore. He was shaping a future he could not yet see. Elias noticed a change in Lumi over the next few days. The hatchling was growing faster than he expected, its small body stronger, wings stretching longer, shimmering scales brighter. Elias had spent his nights crafting toys and puzzles for it, but now Lumi seemed less interested in play. It watched the workshop, its eyes sharp and alert, as if it understood more than any ordinary creature should. One morning, Elias tested Lumi's curiosity. He placed a small, broken drone on the floor, its circuits exposed. Lumi tilted its head, touching a tiny claw to a wire. Sparks flew, and the drone whirred to life. Elias stepped back in shock. The hatchling hadn't just touched it, it had repaired it. Elias could hardly believe his eyes. Lumi was learning fast, far faster than any human could have expected. The colony was tense. Alien scouts had been spotted near the outer rim, and the mining colony's security teams were on high alert. Elias worried about what might happen if Lumi was discovered. But the hatchling seemed to sense the danger before anyone else. Its ears twitched, and its tail flicked whenever someone approached the workshop. Elias realized that Lumi was not only intelligent but also keenly aware of its surroundings. One evening, explosions rocked the colony. Alien raiders were attacking. Alarms blared, and miners scrambled for safety. Elias grabbed Lumi and hid it under a tarp in the workshop. But the hatchling didn't stay hidden quietly. It flared its wings, tiny sparks jumping from its scales, and hissed at the approaching noise. Elias's heart pounded. Lumi was trying to warn him. Elias had always been calm under pressure, but now he felt a mix of fear and awe. The hatchling's instincts were extraordinary. He realized that Lumi could see, hear, and sense things he couldn't. For the first time, he understood that this creature wasn't helpless, it was powerful, even in its small form. The attack lasted only minutes, but it left the colony shaken. Some miners were injured, machinery damaged, and a few storage crates burned to ash. Elias stayed in the workshop with Lumi, watching the hatchling carefully. Lumi seemed calmer now, but there was a spark in its eyes, a quiet determination. Elias couldn't explain it, but he felt that something had changed. Over the next few days, Elias worked with Lumi more deliberately. He taught the hatchling how to manipulate small tools, how to assemble parts, and even how to operate the colony's communication devices. Lumi picked up quickly. It began solving problems on its own, figuring out how things worked, even anticipating Elias's movements. Elias marveled at the creature's intelligence. One afternoon, Mara visited the workshop with a small tray of food. "I can't believe how fast it's learning," she whispered, watching Lumi push pieces of a broken console together until it worked. Elias nodded. "It's more than smart," he said. "It's extraordinary." Mara looked concerned. "Do you think it's safe? What if the others find out?" Elias shook his head. "They wouldn't understand. This isn't just an animal. It's something else." He paused, watching Lumi flap its tiny wings in excitement. Something that could change everything. As the colony recovered from the raid, Elias noticed something even stranger. Lumi began to respond to his emotions. When Elias was anxious, the hatchling would nuzzle his hand or flap its wings to distract him. When he was calm, Lumi would mirror the same calm, its glowing scales pulsing softly. Elias realized that the bond between them wasn't one-sided. The hatchling wasn't just learning from him, it was connecting with him on a deeper level. Then came the first real test. The colony's main power generator broke down, leaving most of the living quarters in darkness. Engineers scrambled, but the system was too complex for quick repair. Elias hesitated, then called Lumi over. The hatchling studied the machinery, tiny claws tracing circuits, its eyes glowing faintly. Sparks jumped from its scales as it moved across the panel. Slowly, the generator hummed to life. Elias stared in disbelief. Lumi had repaired the generator without guidance, without hesitation. The hatchling had not just learned, it had become capable of extraordinary feats. Mara gasped. "I've never seen anything like it," she said, voice trembling. Elias felt a surge of pride and fear. Lumi was growing stronger, smarter, faster than anyone could imagine. And with the alien threat nearby, Elias realized that the hatchling might soon be the colony's greatest defense, or the reason they would attract attention they could not handle. Late that night, Elias sat alone with Lumi in the quiet workshop. The stars outside twinkled over the asteroid field. Lumi curled beside him, tiny wings tucked close, and Elias whispered, "You're going to need to be careful. They won't understand you, not yet." The hatchling blinked slowly, its scales glowing faintly in response. Elias felt a chill run down his spine. This creature, small and fragile when he first found it, was now capable of things he could barely comprehend. Something inside him stirred, a mixture of awe and fear, hope and responsibility. For the first time, Elias understood that helping a helpless creature wasn't just an act of kindness. It was a decision that could change everything. And as he watched Lumi's glowing eyes in the dim light, he knew the hatchling was not just learning from him, it was preparing for something greater, something he could not yet imagine. The colony had barely recovered from the last raid when another warning alarm blared through the halls. This time, the threat was closer, alien raiders had breached the outer mining ring, and security teams reported heavy movement near the landing pads. Elias felt a tight knot of worry in his stomach. He glanced at Lumi, who was perched on the edge of the workshop table, wings twitching nervously. The hatchling's eyes glowed faintly, brighter than usual. Elias knelt beside Lumi. "We have to be ready," he whispered. Lumi tilted its head, watching him closely, as if it understood the danger perfectly. Elias could feel a strange reassurance from the small creature. Despite its size, there was something commanding about the hatchling, a quiet strength that seemed to fill the room. The first explosion shook the colony, throwing dust and debris across the main hall. Miners ran for cover, shouting warnings to one another. Elias grabbed a wrench and ran toward the control room, carrying Lumi carefully. The hatchling hissed softly, sparks jumping from its scales, illuminating the path in the darkness. Elias realized, with a start, that Lumi wasn't just scared, it was reacting, preparing, sensing the danger in a way no human could. They reached the control room just as another alien squad appeared outside the reinforced doors. Lights from their armor reflected off the windows, red and menacing. Elias pressed himself against the console, trying to think. "We can't hold them off for long," he muttered. "We need a plan." Lumi shifted, its wings flaring slightly. A faint glow spread across its scales, and Elias saw sparks dancing along its body. Then it happened. Lumi leapt from his arms with surprising speed. Sparks surged into the room, arcs of energy jumping from the hatchling to the machinery. The console flickered to life, screens lighting up, systems whirring with renewed power. Elias's jaw dropped. The hatchling wasn't just reacting, it was controlling the equipment, manipulating the colony's defenses with an intelligence that no human engineer could match. Outside, the alien squad paused, confused. Lights in the hall began to flicker and hum. Doors slammed shut, trapping some of the raiders in sections of the base. Elias watched, both terrified and awed, as Lumi's small body radiated power. Sparks arced from its wings, striking panels, activating systems, and rerouting energy. Each movement was precise, deliberate. Elias realized that the hatchling wasn't just defending itself, it was defending the colony. Mara arrived, eyes wide with shock. Elias, it's controlling everything, she shouted over the alarms. I know, he yelled back. It's incredible, but we can't let anyone see it like this. Lumi's glowing scales pulsed faster, the light brightening until the room was filled with a soft, bluish glow. Sparks danced around the workshop, harmlessly bouncing off walls, but Elias could feel the energy in the air. There was power here, raw and immense, coming from something so small and fragile. For a moment, he feared it might get out of control, but Lumi seemed calm, focused, perfectly aware of every action. The alien raiders tried to breach the doors, but Lumi anticipated every move. Lights flickered, doors locked and unlocked, and alarms rang in confusing patterns. Elias realized the hatchling had learned the colony systems faster than anyone could. It was thinking, adapting, controlling. And it wasn't just fighting, it was strategizing. Minutes passed like hours. The raiders, frustrated and disoriented, eventually retreated, leaving the colony battered but intact. Elias sank to the floor, breathing heavily. Lumi landed beside him, wings folding gently, sparks fading. Its scales still glowed softly, like embers in the dark. Elias ran his hand along its back, feeling a shiver of awe. You saved them, he whispered. You saved everyone. Lumi blinked slowly, then pressed its head against his hand. Elias felt a wave of something he had never felt before, pride, fear, and hope all at once. This small creature, this helpless hatchling he had found days ago, had become the colony's greatest defender. Mara knelt beside him. Elias, this changes everything. We can't keep it hidden anymore. People will notice. Elias shook his head. They don't understand yet. Lumi isn't just a weapon. It's more than that, it's something new. Something that could change the galaxy one day. And we have to make sure it grows safely, or the wrong people will use it. As night fell, the colony settled into an uneasy silence. Sparks of fire from damaged equipment still glowed in the distance, but Lumi curled beside Elias, calm and watchful. Elias thought about what had happened. The hatchling was no longer helpless. It had powers, intelligence, and the ability to act faster than any human or machine. And somehow, it had chosen him, not just as a caretaker, but as a partner. For the first time, Elias understood the full weight of his actions. Helping a small, injured dragon was no longer a simple act of kindness. It was a decision that had shaped the future, a choice that had set in motion events far beyond the colony, far beyond anything he could imagine. He looked at Lumi, its glowing eyes reflecting the dim lights of the workshop. This is only the beginning, he whispered. And deep inside, he knew it was true. The hatchling was destined for more than survival. It was destined to change everything. Months passed, and the colony slowly returned to normal. Miners worked, machines hummed, and the asteroid glimmered under distant starlight. But Elias knew nothing would ever be the same. Lumi had grown larger, stronger, more intelligent than anyone could imagine. Its wings now stretched wide, scales shining like molten silver, and the faint glow it carried had deepened into a soft, steady radiance. Elias spent every moment with the hatchling, training it, teaching it, and learning from it in return. Lumi could now mimic speech perfectly, understand complex commands, and anticipate problems before they happened. It no longer needed Elias to guide its every move, it was thinking, planning, and acting independently. But it still came to him for comfort, curling beside him at night, trusting him completely. One day, reports arrived from other colonies. Alien factions had begun to notice a new force in this sector. Ships were moving differently, defensive patterns changing, and the influence of a strange, intelligent entity was being felt across the system. Elias realized with a chill that Lumi's abilities were no longer a secret to the universe. Somehow, its small actions at the colony were rippling outward, reshaping the balance of power. The hatchling seemed aware of this, its eyes glowing brighter as it watched the communication screens. Elias understood then that Lumi had become more than a protector, it was a leader. A strategist. The small, helpless dragon he had rescued was now commanding respect and caution from beings across the galaxy. Elias knew the moment had come to step back. Lumi had grown beyond the safety of the workshop, beyond the simple colony life. It was destined to rise, to take its place among the stars. But he also knew that the bond they shared would never be broken. He had given Lumi life and trust, Lumi had given him purpose and hope. That night, Elias walked to the highest observation deck of the colony, Lumi perched on his shoulder. Together, they watched the stars. "You're ready," Elias said quietly. Lumi turned its head, eyes reflecting the light of distant suns, as if it understood the weight of those words. Elias felt pride swell in his chest. He had nurtured a being that could change the galaxy, and he had done it with nothing but compassion, patience, and courage. The next morning, alien ships approached the colony, but they did not attack. Instead, Lumi soared into the sky, wings wide and glowing. Its powerful presence radiated across the landing fields. The aliens paused, then slowly retreated. Every miner, engineer, and worker watched in awe. The small hatchling they had feared would be dangerous was now a symbol of hope, strength, and intelligence beyond human understanding. Elias remained on the ground, watching Lumi rise. He knew the dragon would travel far, meet powerful allies and foes, and leave its mark across star systems. Yet he felt no fear. He had given it life, guidance, and trust. That was enough. Humans had created something extraordinary through empathy, through courage, through understanding the value of a single, fragile life. Days turned into weeks, and news of Lumi's deeds spread. Colonies reported alliances formed, conflicts averted, and the galaxy slowly recognizing a new force of intelligence and power. And always, behind the dragon's rise, Elias's influence remained quiet but profound. Humanity had planted a spark that could reshape worlds, and that spark was growing faster than anyone could have imagined. One evening, long after the colony had quieted, Elias sat alone on a bench, looking at the stars. Lumi returned briefly, landing softly beside him. Its eyes glowed faintly, a gentle reminder of the bond they shared. Elias stroked its head and whispered, "You've grown beyond anything I could have dreamed." The dragon nuzzled him in response, silent but full of understanding. Elias knew then that this was the legacy of humanity, the courage to care, the willingness to act, the determination to help the helpless, and the patience to guide them to greatness. Humanity might not command the galaxy, but through acts like his, humans could shape it in ways no machine, no alien, and no weapon could achieve. As Lumi rose again into the sky, its powerful wings carrying it toward distant stars, Elias smiled. The colony, the galaxy, and even the future itself would remember this story, not because of war or conquest, but because of human courage, compassion, and vision. A simple act of helping a helpless hatchling had changed everything. And somewhere among the stars, Lumi's soft glow continued to shine, a symbol of what humanity could achieve when it dared to help, to nurture, and to believe in something greater. The galaxy would never forget the human who gave life to a dragon. And humanity, through Elias's quiet courage, had proven once again that even the smallest actions could change the fate of worlds.